Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranids. Jesus, I need a haircut. And in today's video we're going to be talking about the Biovores. We're going to be looking at the data card as well as some synergy, go through some stratagems, and at the end of the video of course we'll be going through the pros and cons and our Planet 40k rating, which is of course just my opinion. If you've got a different opinion, let me know down in the comments below. Right, so let's get straight into the back of the data card for the Biovores. Starting with the points, they're 40 points for 1, 80 points for 2, 120 points for 3. You can take them in 1, 2 or 3, which is fairly nice. Now previously in 9th edition these guys were 45 points ahead, so we're saving 5 points a model there. I mean that's been quite a standard thing that I'm finding in the Tyranid index. A lot of these things are cheaper than they were, some of them only slightly, but some of them there are a massive reduction. Now every model is equipped with a Spore Mines launcher and a chitin barbed limbs. There of course got the keywords of infantry, and that's all that's really of note from the keywords. So let's flip this over and check out the statistics for the Biovores. So a movement of 5 inches, they're not going that fast. You don't really want to be moving them anyway, to be honest with you. The toughness has gone up to toughness 6, it was only toughness 5, so that gives us a little bit more resiliency, especially against things like heavy bolters perhaps. That was strength 5, those kind of strength 5 weaponry now need 5s to wound. The save is a 4+, the wounds is 4 as it was, leadership 8+, and objective control is only 1. That sucks, but yeah, whatever. So let's move over into the range attacks, which is kind of the main, well I suppose it's one of the main things about this unit. We've got the Spore Mine launcher. Now this has got 4 different keywords attached to the actual weapon. You've got the blast keyword, so for every 5 models in the opposing player's unit, you're going to get an additional attack. So if you go up against 20 Necron Warriors, that's going to be 4 additional attacks on top of what you get. It's got devastating wounds, so if you wound on an unmodified roll of a 6, you're not going to get them, they're not going to get a save, and also it's going to be mortal wounds to the equivalent of the damage. So in this case it will be damage 2, it will be 2 mortal wounds. It's got the heavy keyword, so if you stay stationary it will be a +1 to the hit roll, and indirect fire, you can fire without actually having visibility or line of sight, but it will be a -1 to hit, and I believe you will be giving them like cover 2. So the heavy as well as the indirect fire kind of cancels each other out if you wanted to use it that way, because it's a +1 to hit then a -1 to hit, so you'll be still hitting on your standard ballistic skill. But yeah, there's 4 keywords there and all of them are pretty decent. Now in 9th edition this weapon used to just do a mortal wound as soon as you got hit. As soon as you scored a hit roll with it, that was it. 1 mortal wound, job done. That was it. Now it's a 48-inch weapon. The attacks is D3, bearing in mind it's got blast as well, so it will be D3 plus whatever else. Ballistic skill is a 4+, again you've got heavy, don't forget, so it could be a 3+, strength is 6, -1 AP and 2 damage. Now there's of course nothing to really compare that to, because as just mentioned in 9th edition, there wasn't really any figures here, it was just as soon as you hit, you score a mortal wound. So this ideally, I mean strength 6, you would normally go against toughness 3 because you're double the amount of the strength against the toughness, so you would wound on a 2+, but the damage is 2, so really it's going to be standard infantry with 2 wounds. Anything that is toughness 5, 4, 3, whatever, you're going to be wounding on a 3+. And the -1 AP is reasonable, it's reasonable. Now there is an ability that you could use instead of this weapon. We're going to go over the abilities in a moment, but let's just quickly check out the melee weapon. It's not that great, but I'm going to go through the data card anyway, so let's just do it anyway. It's got 2 attacks, weapon skill 4+, strength 5, so it has in fact lost a bit of strength. It used to be strength 6. It's no AP, it used to be -1. And 1 damage, so yeah, you're not expecting too much from it. It can't really defend itself that greatly, so ideally you don't want to be within engagement range. Now onto those abilities, you've got Deadly Demise 1, so it can explode, and of course if you've got a unit of 3 of them and 1 model does explode on a roll of a 6 of course, that will be passing mortal wounds to the remainder of your unit. It's of course got Synapse as well, although it doesn't actually have the Synapse keyword. It needs Synapse from an actual Synapse creature within your list in order to have 3 dice for the battle shock tests. But the main ability, the main attraction for the Biovores is Seed Spore Mines. This is the main purpose why you bring the Biovores. So what is Seed Spore Mines? In your shooting phase, each time this unit is selected to shoot, you can use this ability instead of making any attacks with the ranged weapons. So you're not using your Spore Mine launcher, instead you're using this ability. And what you do is you add a brand new Spore Mines unit to your army and set it up anywhere on the battlefield that is within 48 inches of this unit, but more than 9 inches away horizontally from enemy units. And that Spore Mines unit contains 1 model for each model in this unit. So if you've got a unit of 3 Biovores, you'll be bringing 3 Spore Mines. If you've got a single model, you'll be bringing just the 1. Now that's good for a number of reasons, In fact, we'll talk about that in a few moments because we're going to just quickly mention a few things and then we'll go on to some synergy with these Spore Mines. So why is this so good with the Spore Mines? So in 9th edition, the Spore Mines couldn't perform actions, they couldn't declare a charge, and they couldn't score any mission objectives or agendas if you were playing Crusade. Now they're completely different because they can score secondary objectives. They can't score primaries because they've got objective control 0, but they can still do secondaries, and there's a lot to talk about. So again, we'll talk about that in a moment, but first I want to go through the Spore Mine abilities and then we'll kind of get a gist of what these guys are about. So Bio Minefield is the first ability that the Spore Mine has. Enemy units cannot start or end an advance move within 6 inches of this unit. So they can still pass through, but they can't start or end an advance move. So that kind of, it was slightly shut them down. I mean, to be honest, is it going to be that useful? Probably not, but it's there. And the second one is Floating Death. Each time an enemy unit moves within 3 inches of this model, or each time our model moves within 3 inches of the enemy unit, you roll 1d6. On a 2, 3, 4, 5, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, and on a 6, the enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. Then this model that caused the roll is then destroyed, so it effectively blows up in your opponent's face. So that's the abilities that the Spore Mine has, but let's try and take this a bit further. Why is that useful to us? What can they do? First of all, you're going to be looking at creating a speed bump. Creating a speed ramp to slow your opponent down because they can't start in their advanced move or end in their advanced move within 6 inches of the Spore Mines, but also they need to stay within 3 inches, or they need to stay away by 3 inches in order to not take mortal wounds. Now it is only 1 mortal wound per model, but they might not want to take those kind of mortal wounds. But more importantly, and this is the most important bit, so the first point was just a bit of a, that's okay, that's great, but that's a bonus. This is the main reason. So it's all about scoring your secondary objectives. Now I made a little list for you. There are 6 secondary objectives out of the pack, out of the Leviathan cards that you can do, that these guys can actually score because they don't need objective control to do these objectives. So the first one is behind enemy lines. As soon as you draw that card, or if you are playing fixed missions, you may have that every single battle round. You just have to fire one of these Spore Mines from your Biovores, get it into behind enemy lines, and you're going to score it just like that. And it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to screen off one single Spore Mine with that small base. It's going to be almost impossible, in fact. The second one is engage on all fronts. Very similarly, you don't need objective control for that. You just literally shoot out some Spore Mines. All you need is the 4 corners. You're probably going to have at least 2 anyway, and this will assist you with engage on all fronts. You've got investigate signals, so you can do it on either the corners of the battlefield, or you're going to be doing it in the centre of the battlefield, although that will only be 2 victory points. You've then got area denial, which is another one. This can be done in the centre of the This will be done at the centre of the battlefield. If one of our units is wholly within 6 inches and enemy units are not within the centre of the battlefield, you're going to be scoring that one. Or deploy teleport Homer. All you need to do is fire one of these Spore Mines into the enemy deployment zone, or within 6 inches of the centre of the battlefield, and you could be scoring 4 or 5 victory points if it is your opponent's deployment zone, which it can quite easily be with a 48-inch range from that ability. So there's, like I said, there's 6 secondary objectives that are going to relate to having the Spore Mines, and if you are playing tactical, they are going to come up, and if you're playing fixed and you've chose them, then they're always going to come up. So it's a very easy way to score victory points, is kind of what I'm getting at here. Now I want to talk about some other unit synergy. We spoke about the Spore Mines being able to be a bit of a speed bump for your opponents. Maybe they don't want to get too involved with a unit of, say, 3 Spore Mines, or maybe you've got 2 units of 3 Biovores and you put a whole cluster of 6 of them, which could be potentially 6 mortal wounds to your opponent. So you're slowing them down. Now there is another unit within the Tyranids Index to slow your opponent down, which is the Barbgons. With their disruption bombardment ability, you're going to be slowing down infantry models, taking 2 from the move characteristics, 2 from the advance, and 2 from the charge roll, so potentially taking away 6 inches of movement throughout their entirety of their turn. So that's another method of slowing your opponents down, especially the infantry side of their army. So we've kind of already spoken about the battlefield role and a bit of synergy. The stratagems don't really relate too much to the Bible, so we're going to kind of skip that part. There's nothing really of note. You've got other units in your index to spend them on. You probably don't need to spend on the Bibles. So let's get into the pros and cons for the Bibles. Start with the pros. They're slightly cheaper in 9th edition, it's only 5 points, but it does help. You can take them in single units, which makes them very cheap. If you've got 40 points left over, you just throw one of these down, and then that 40 points can rapidly become more than 40 points as soon as you start bringing out spore mines every single turn. That then scores you points. They're now toughness 6, not toughness 5. They've got 48-inch range. If you want to use the weapon properly, which I wouldn't recommend you do, but if you do, it's got blast, devastating wounds, heavy and indirect, so there's a lot of keywords within their weaponry. But the main reason for taking these guys is to create 3 spore mines each and every turn. Now bearing in mind the spore mines cost you 50 points for 3, I believe it is. Just double checking. Spore mines. 3 models, 50 points, 6 models, 100 points. So bottom line is you're never going to actually pay points for spore mines. That's way too much, isn't it? A Biovore is literally cheaper, so why would you? And the spore mines of course can score you secondaries, which we've mentioned there's 6 in the actual deck that you can score from. As for the cons, they're not really great in melee. This is the Biovores we're talking about, and the damage output is actually quite minimal. So where do I stand with the Biovores in terms of a Planet 40k rating? I think they're amazing. I think for 40 points, you're pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to be scoring some victory points. And even if you don't pull those cards by some crazy luck that you don't pull any of those cards when you're playing tactical, there's still 40 points that can sit on your home objective. They've got indirect fire. They don't need to go too far. I mean, they can screen out deep strike, so your opponent isn't going to be getting into your backlines that easily with the deep strike ability. So there's just lots of uses, and it's just 40 points. It's so cheap. Now what I personally would do is take a couple of single units. If you want to go full on, you could take 3, but really 2 is probably enough, to be fair. I know in my previous video I did with the list, I did 3, but after reading a lot of comments and doing a little bit more in-depth looks of all the cards and stuff, I was thinking, you know what, 2 is probably enough. 2 is probably enough. So yeah, you take 2 single ones. You don't need to put them together. There's no need, because you want the spore mines to actually separate. And of course, if they are together, you only use that ability once, aren't you? So as soon as you do that ability, it's only going to be 2 spore mines in one individual unit, whereas you want to be splitting them off really to make your opponent think and have to get rid of them. But yeah, for the Planet 40k rating, because I've been divvying on a little bit, let's get on with the actual star rating. And this one, yeah, it's a 5-star rating from me, guys. This one is virtually an auto include. It's only 40 points. You'll find room for it. So guys, that is it from me today. Let me know down in the comments below your rating, and also if you've got any suggestions for the next review we do, let me know down in the comments below. Guys, thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.